Finally! I have a chance to talk about the Rainbow Rocks movie! I mean, it took ages to watch when it finally aired on Christmas Eve last year, but now it's out here on DVD. Let's talk about—
Hey Zion, we've planned a Drifter presentation on My Little Pony Friendship's Magic Equestria Girls Rainbow Rocks. Want to be a part of it?
Yeah, sure!
Great, see you later.
Yeah, see ya. Well, looks like the Rainbow Rocks review's on hold for now. The new series hasn't aired yet. What can I talk about? Oh, so this is where it went. I was writing notes about the G1 series and... Hey, maybe I can talk about that series instead. But which one? Solemnula? I think I need to talk about Tails before I get to that and...
Talk about Crunch the Rockdog.
Why?
Because you didn't mention Wind Whistler.
Fair point. What's this? Another comment about the movie saying it was acceptable in the 80s. Oh, I am so sick of people using that as an excuse. That's not an excuse for shut... Wait a minute. Acceptable in the 80s? You know, that gives me a nice idea. And if OSW don't mind me pinching their intro, roll titles! Greetings to all, I am Silent Craze and welcome to the Old School Pony Review. I'm your reviewer and today's episode is Crunch the Rockdog. Anyone that had watched my last review on the My Little Pony movie, you may have noticed I didn't talk about fan favourite Pegasus of the original series, Wind Whistler. Now, I didn't mean to not talk about her or leave her out of the review intentionally, it was just a mishap on my half. I rewatched the movie again and I should have mentioned Wind Whistler. She did seem the most level-headed of the ponies of the movie, and she did save Megan a couple of times. Although, I still have no idea why I mentioned Northstar when she was barely in the movie and was only mentioned twice. Has it changed my view on the movie? No, not really. I still don't think the movie is worth watching. The series, on the other hand, I think is more worth your time to watch. But as an apology for my blunder, I will talk about what some are calling the best episode of the series and her finest moments. Crunch the Rockdog! The episode starts with Paradise finishing up a story about two lovers having to leave one another to get away from... Summer. It really doesn't matter at this point. And this manages to upset everyone when the story is over, all except for Wind Whistler, who doesn't seem to get the concept of the story. This leads to Buttons and Gusty saying, "She has no feelings," while upsetting her at the same time. Nice going, you two. But while these girls are mocking Wind Whistler, nameless critters are being chased by a massive rock dog called Crunch, and he turns these annoying pests into stone. One of them manages to get away from Crunch, and he asks help from the other characters, so they travel towards Tamuchik to find a solution. They mention where Crunch comes from, and he recommends going towards Crunch's homeland, the Purple Mountain Range, to talk to the Mountain King himself, his elevated enemies. But unfortunately, Crunch is behind them, chasing after another beastie that managed to get away, and he achieves to turn the last two buggers into stone, and Gusty as well. So now it's a race towards finding the Mountain King to not only stop Crunch the Rock Dog, but also so they can save their friend as well. I know they said that the ponies in the movie were forgettable, but this time, however, I did not forget them. Buttons and Gusty are both testy towards Wind Whistler. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. They keep on referring to Wind Whistler for not having any feelings, which I didn't think was nice of them, especially this scene.
Way to go, Buttons.
Wow, tactful as ever, aren't you, Buttons? However, when they need to protect their friends, they don't give it a second thought to protect them, whether they succeed or not. Which was nice, I'll have to admit. Truly was also irritated by Wind Whistler, however, she really didn't stick out for me in this episode. The only thing I remember was that she had a hat on, and somehow it doesn't change into a rock. Odd. Megan and Danny defend Wind Whistler when the other ponies were harsh towards her, and Megan really doesn't stand out that much in this episode. Danny, however, does the bravest thing here, telling Crunch the Rock Dog off.
Hey you! Yeah, you! You fossilized mud! You're a bad dog! Bad! Bad dog, sit!
But instead of taking him seriously, he gives him a case of the giggles instead. Yeah, this isn't Danny's best moment in the series, however, that is for another time. Crunch is a surprisingly interesting villain, well, more interesting in his design and what he can do, and he was created by the Mountain King to help defend him, and he was made indestructible with his black lava rock color. But due to not being made without a heart, everything he touches turns to stone, and he hates everything good, from clouds, flowers, and living things. I'm surprised he hasn't been mentioned before this because, well, I actually did like it. But the Mountain King...
Greetings!
Earthquake! Anyway, this living earthquake machine that gives me motion sickness is not as interesting. And the fact that he keeps on shaking a scream every time he talks is just annoying and insufferable. And also nauseous. Ugh. And then there's Wind Whistler, who throughout the episode has been called emotionless from her so-called pony friends. Don't worry, they do apologise later. But seeing this episode, I wouldn't exactly call Wind Whistler unemotional. Just someone who doesn't talk about her emotions. And yes, I know who she reminds me of. Spock from Star Trek.
That is illogical, Ensign. Odors cannot travel through the vacuum of space.
It is illogical to begin a long journey just as the sun is setting.
You couldn't sell fake patents to your mother.
Fail to understand why I should care to induce my mother to purchase falsified patents.
Calm, calm. Only someone with no feelings could remain calm at a time like this.
I meant that we need a plan of action.
She's right.
But we better find out what makes this Rockdog tick.
Thank you, Leonard Nimoy. I can see why a lot of people have a lot of love for her, and no doubt I've been turned into a Wind Whistler fan myself after this episode. But what is Wind Whistler's greatest moment? Well, after all the horrid things the ponies have said to her, to full crunch... You know what? Play the clip.
I mean it. Go ahead. I don't care what you do with her.
You're crazy if you think I'll buy that.
I'm perfectly serious. I've been surrounded by these romantic idiots for so long, it is refreshing to find one such as yourself.
And would you believe that he actually falls for it? Nicely done, love. Take a bow. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone else. Oh yeah, the Moochick and Rabbit. They're the same as
Excuse me, Mr. Craze, but you haven't mentioned the Bush Woolies. You've not even mentioned them by their name.
I know I'm not calling them by name, because I genuinely do hate them. They're annoying pests, and I refuse to refer to them as their species name.
I'm getting complaints from Fluttershy here. She says if you keep this up, the Bush Woolies will take action against you.
What are they gonna do? Pester me to death? Bring it on! Ow! Okay. You brought it. Point made. Ow. Where was I? Oh, the animation. The animation is slightly improved on the series, but there are a few slight hiccups that are forgivable at times. But the one thing I cannot forgive is the Mountain King, who is a single frame with a face painted on. He doesn't even move apart from shaking the screen back and forth. Forget it, pal, you're not gonna change my... Oh, I'm gonna fall this time.
Oh, how did I get here?
Oh, Mountain King. And I might be concussed, but I think your wings have broken off.
What?
Fun fact, while writing this review, I found out something interesting about the writer of this episode, Linda Wolferton, who later wrote the screenplays of Disney's Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, two of my favourite Disney movies. This isn't her only writing for Disney. She was also one of the 3 pre-production story developers for the Aladdin movie that was by Disney. She also wrote some additional story material for Mulan, and she also wrote an episode for Chip and Dale the Rescue Rangers. And before joining Disney, Linda Wolverton also wrote for other cartoon series like American Dennis the Menace, The Real Ghostbusters, and the Garbage Pail Kids series. Oh well, no one's perfect.
She also wrote the Burton version of Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, Linda also wrote the Burton version of Alice in Wonderland. I don't particularly care for that movie. Can I finish?
And the 2014 version of Maleficent.
Okay, let's wrap this up! Is this a good episode? Oh yeah! Is it the best episode of the series? I'm not too sure I personally call it the best, but considering I've watched all of these episodes, which I'm clearly too lazy to say, especially that last one right there, Yeah, I can see why this is considered the best in the series. I highly recommend fans of the current series to watch this episode. I was really into the story, it did hold my interest, and while I do agree that the ending of the episode did seem a little rushed, you'll see what I mean if you watch it. It is still worth watching nonetheless. I'm Zion Craze, and this was acceptable in the 80s, and it's acceptable now.
It was just one of those things, just one of those crazy things, one of those bells that now and then rings, just one of those things. It was just one of those nights, just one of those fabulous flights, a trip to the moon on gossamer wings, just one of those things. If we thought of it, of the end of it, when we started painting.
Every one of you! No pony left behind!
The new series has aired since when?